All right, everyone. So just bear with me just a moment. For those that you are watching on our Facebook Live, go ahead and share this video. We definitely appreciate each and every one of you for checking in. We're definitely looking forward to our discussion tonight. Definitely want to extend a warm thanks to all of our participants, especially braving this cold weather that we have going tonight. And I believe we have the last of our panelists. Let me make sure that the stream is going. We are streaming, so we're going to go ahead and get started. KLEK 102.5 FM. Good evening to each and every one of you that are listening and watching on this program today. This is our, let me look up and get the right title of this, the Black Families and Mental Health Panel Discussion. This is a collaboration of KLEK and the Office of Multicultural Affairs on the campus of Arkansas State University. And tonight's program, the purpose is to foster an open and frank discussion about mental health and the challenges that we face when it comes to mental health in our community. So we're just going to basically just go with the flow and just be honest and candid with each other. And we hope that everyone will get something out of it. So we're going to start with introductions. I'm going to just go down our list of participants and let each one introduce themselves. So I will start with myself. My name is Leganzi Kale. I am the founder and general manager of KLEK 102.5 FM, the first and only minority-owned radio station in Jonesboro. I'm also a 2003 graduate of Arkansas State University, and I will be your moderator and host for tonight. And so I will go on the list next. And next we will hear from Mr. CJ Pepper.
Man, I knew you was going to put me first, man.
That's next up on that. You next up on the panel.
Okay, no, man. So my name is CJ Pepper. I'm from Kentucky, but I came here at Arkansas State on a basketball scholarship. End up playing a little ball after that with the Globetrotters and overseas, and then came back to Arkansas State and graduated in 2005. Then immediately started working in mental health and so I worked at a place called Life Strategies Counseling, Inc. for 15 years, and then worked at Life Strategies of Arkansas for a year. And now I'm insurance, but I've had close to 15 years, close to 20 years of experience with mental health.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Next, we will hear from, I call him Bishop Lloyd, because Bishop Lloyd is not only a mental health professional, but he is also a pastor. So I will let him introduce himself now.
My name is Matthew Lloyd. I am a licensed professional counselor. I own Secure Foundation Counseling, and I'm also a registered play therapist. Also certified in parent-child interaction therapy. And I went to Arkansas State and born and raised in Jonesboro.
All right, and thank you so much again for joining us. Bethel's iPhone, if you could unmute and show your face and introduce yourself. All right, we'll come back. Carnisha Ben.
Yes, so my name is Carnisha Ben. I am a student life counselor, a licensed associate counselor for Arkansas State University. I've been doing that for 4.5 years. June is my 5th year milestone, so I'm excited about that. I graduated from A-State twice, so I graduated in 2015 and 2017, and I'm also a certified rehabilitation counselor, and I'm excited to be here tonight, so thank you.
And we're excited to have you. So next up is Joy Bird.
Hello, my name is Joy Bird. I'm from Pine Bluff, Arkansas. I am a senior here at Arkansas State University, majoring in pre-professional studies. And I'm also the president of the Black Student Association.
All right, and we thank you so much. And last but certainly not least, Raven Jackson.
Hello, everyone. My name is Raven Jackson. I am from North Little Rock, Arkansas. I'm a senior social work major here at Arkansas State University. I have a minor in children's advocacy studies. I'm a proud member of the Kappa Psi chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And my ultimate goal is to become a mental health therapist and open my own private practice for mental health services. And I am currently interning at Unity Health Psychiatric Inpatient Facility in Newport. And I'm very excited and grateful to be a part of this conversation tonight. Thank you.
And we're excited to have you. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into our discussion. The first topic I want to talk about is the stigmas of mental health, especially in our community. A lot of times, you know, we all go through things. We all have those feelings of depression. I know that I do, but a lot of times people are just afraid to speak out because they are afraid of being labeled or something like that. So what can we do to get people to open up, to let folks know it is okay to deal with mental health and that it is okay to seek help? What can we do to break down those barriers? And anyone can chime in. Don't speak on it once.
I don't want to go first. So I think that the first thing is recognizing the internal and external factors that play a role into the stigmas. So with internal, oftentimes there's a lot of judgment, self-judgment as far as like, well, if I decide to pursue counseling, or if, you know, I speak up about being depressed or suicidal or anything along the lines of that, then I'll be deemed crazy or I'm out of my mind or no one will believe me. And so we have a lot of that. And a lot of the external is a lot of what we see on social media, the portrayal of mental health. Sometimes our families play a role into that, our friends, sometimes the environment that we're in. And so I think that we have to really be cognizant of being able to recognize the way that the outside and inside factors are playing a role in feeding into that stigma narrative. So that's really important.
And I'm glad that you brought that because it just made me think of something. Of course, in the social media age, we have the influencers. You know, you see the TikTok influencers and the Instagram influencers. And I think people who are in those positions should use their platforms, because usually if it's someone that you look up to and you see that they're going through it, it kind of makes it easier for you. That's why with me and KLEK, you know, I always tell people, yes, I suffer from depression. Yes, I have been suicidal. I have even been suicidal since starting KLEK. I won't go into a specific incident, maybe a little later on, but just being blunt and coming out saying, yes, I am someone who is known in the community. Yes, I go through this. I think that goes a long way. Anyone else want to chime in? I will call names.
I'll definitely chime in on that. I would like to echo what Ms. Carnisha was saying about environment. Just recognizing the displays that we have around us about mental health. I don't want to speak for everybody, but a lot of us see our parents, our grandparents be so quote unquote strong, or maybe they cry and go through their emotions behind closed doors. And so we don't know what it looks like to have low moments or to have anxiety, to have depression. So we feel out of place when we experience these emotions because we don't see people around us being vulnerable and transparent with what they're going through. And so I think how we can play a huge part in combating all of these different stigmas within ourselves and within society is most of all being transparent. I believe that telling your story will create the avenue for somebody else to say, hey, I've dealt with that too. Just like you were saying, that just being open and saying, I've been through this, it was rough, but here's how I got through it, kind of gives somebody that sense of community and support. And also educating people about mental illnesses and the different things that we can go through, just being a human being, going through the daily stresses of life. When we are able to put a name and a title to these things, instead of feeling like, where are these thoughts coming from? Why am I feeling like this? Sometimes it's easier to categorize what you're going through when you can understand that maybe that's mild depression, maybe that's major depression, maybe that's anxiety or generalized anxiety disorder. Sometimes knowing those different diagnosis and the symptoms can really help you feel like, okay, I haven't made this up. My feelings are valid, and this is what it is, and this is how I can move forward in tackling these issues that I'm going through. So that's how I see
I
that.
want to hear. I want to hear from the professionals on this panel, Bishop Lloyd or CJ. Obviously, you all work, or in CJ case, have worked in the field. So I kind of want to get your perspective on what we can do to break down those stigmas.
I agree with
Those
what's been
young, go ahead.
said.
You go ahead,
Go
Mr.
ahead.
President. No, no, I was just going to say that I know for me it's one of those issues to where I can just talk about when I was working in mental health, especially people that are in our culture. They would say, "My kid is not crazy. They don't need counseling." They just had this instance in school, a situation in school where, this happened or that happened, but sometimes as parents, we have to change that. Not as parents, as adults, we just have to change that stigma. And those young ladies talked about it very well. And I also want to say NBA players and football players have been coming out about their own mental health issues, and especially with our young people, that helps them say, well, wow, Kevin Love, he's an NBA champion. He has mental health issues. Or a guy named Brandon Marshall, he has mental health issues. And just seeing a NFL football player and NBA basketball player, and just these people that these kiddos look up to and say, wow, they are going through some of the same issues that I go through. Like Kevin Love said, he had to take medication for his anxiety. Another guy named Brandon Marshall, he said, I have to take medication because I'm bipolar. And so I just think, sharing those stories with individuals when we know that they're struggling with certain situations, because I truly feel we all struggle a little, all of us have something going on, but some is just greater than others. But again, like those young ladies were saying, being transparent and sharing stories and not being judgmental when people share their stories.
All right, Bishop Lloyd.
I agree with everything that's been said. Talk about it. Things like what we're doing tonight, getting the word out there, also sharing, just like everyone else said. One of the things I want to bring up, especially about social media, some things that people don't understand is whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and their best life. And so when somebody that's struggling with depression or anxiety or whatever, they think they're the only ones that's going through it, because when they look on Facebook, they're not dealing with anything. And I think that celebrities or, just people in our community, if they say, this is what I'm dealing with, this is how I handle it, it'll take the stigma off.
And I wanted to ask on top of that, because the thing about social media, it's 24/7. And for some people, it's difficult to escape. It's two things. If they're being tormented, it can be difficult to escape the torment of social media. Or I'm going to just say something that kind of disturbs me. So with me being in media, I'm exposed to disturbing stories all day long. But because of what I do, I can't necessarily, I can maybe take a few hours and not look at it, but I still have to keep up with it. So, what are some ways someone can cope with the onslaught of triggers that come with being on social media? And that's open for anybody.
I know for me personally, during the pandemic and then during the time with like George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter, it was very triggering for me just to know every time the TV was turned on, every time I opened up Snapchat or Facebook or anything in general, everybody's personal opinions on the matter was stated, or just in general, like, well, I should feel this way, but if you're a Christian, you shouldn't feel this way, but this is my political beliefs. And me personally, I had to detox completely. So I did like two, 3 weeks of no social media and prayed about the subject matter at hand, like just asking God in general, why do I feel this way? Like, I'm angry, God, but I know I shouldn't be angry. But God also tells you like your feelings are valid in this moment. And then having to pray over the situation and knowing like at the end, even if justice at that time wasn't served, it'll be served at the end, and know that it's out of my hands. And as a person what can I do when I'm around others who view the situation differently? How can I be polite and respectful as a Christian or as a person and get my point across that I want to be riled up about the issues at hand. So you will have to personally distance yourself from media. And like you said, it's hard. As a college student, everything's on social media, your updates about the weather. Like recently we got our emails in, but we check our Instagrams more, we check our emails. So it's just having to balance, like I only do 30 minutes a day. All right, after those 30 minutes, you can get off of it. And the great thing about like cell phones now, you actually have your do not disturbs where you can set them for how long you want them on there. So like, I have a studying do not disturb. So when I'm in class, it's on. No distractions. When I get out of class, it's on for like 10 to 15 minutes. And you just have to limit yourself, but you have to be willing to limit yourself and versus just saying that you're going to do it.
And I definitely appreciate that. Quick note for those of you watching online, go ahead. If you have any questions, any particular topics that you want to talk about, go ahead and drop those in the comments, because toward the end of the program, we will get into those. We definitely want to hear from everyone out there that is watching. What are some of the challenges that you face? What are some things that you would like to see? So don't be afraid to post your questions and your comments in the panel. So getting back to the panel, again, anyone else want to chime in on social media, how to cope with the onslaught of triggers from social media?
Yeah, I was going to talk to something just happened recently that somebody was just talking to me, and they told me that, and this is to me a very great person, and I'm not judging her neither here nor there, but this is what she said. She said that I'm going to get me a tummy tuck. And this lady her son is almost 30. She's a grandmother as well. And she's a little older than me, but I was like, I didn't feel like it, I said, I think that's because you're watching social media so much to the point where you see it, you looking at what people got going on and thinking that it's so great. And, and you want to fit a certain way because of what everybody is accepting, instead of being exactly just who you are and that being okay and enough. And that just really bothered me to the point where, I was just talking and like, wise people, and some of it is just, I don't think that this person would have had this, they wouldn't have thought about doing this if it wasn't for social media, because they're always on social media and looking at what everybody else doing. And like Bishop Lloyd said, nobody is posting about their failures, on Facebook. And we know that they have those. And I think, or Facebook or Instagram. And I just think we shouldn't judge our lives so much on what everybody else is doing off of social media.
Oh, absolutely.
I wanted to add something that, like what Joy was saying, when George Floyd happened, like that was a lot for specifically in the African American community. I know as a counselor, it was difficult trying to balance like my own personal feelings while also maintaining that emotional space for my clients. I think that what we all have to really be mindful of is that, like when we are seeing like a lot of traumatizing things over and over again, we are unknowingly absorbing a lot of that trauma. It's called vicarious trauma, actually. And so, although, some things can be entertaining and things like that, but as everyone is saying, it's so important for us to really monitor how we utilize social media. As Joy was saying, like making sure that we do limit the usage, because social media is so persuasive, as CJ was saying. And no one is going to, everything is about glitz and glamour. Like no one is going to talk about the struggle behind doors. And so I really make a point to encourage like all of my clients, my students that I see, of like, when they say things along the lines of like, well, I really wish I was like this person or that person, I always say, well, what do we know what's going on behind closed doors? Because they could be, going through, so much adversity behind closed doors, but trying to, like Raven said earlier, trying to just maintain that strong presence, or I got everything going on, when in reality they don't. And so overall, the point that I'm trying to make is that it's very important for us to just be mindful, as everyone is saying, and just really monitor, and also recognize that social media as much as it can be informative and educational, it can also be detrimental to our mental health as well. So we need to be mindful of that.
I just want to insert a quick story about, because you mentioned the George Floyd protests, and I want to relate a story. The day of the protest, I was the only media that was at the Jonesboro protest. I remember we had like over 3,500 people on our live feed, but there was one particular incident where this was over at the overpass of Caraway and I-555. There was the protesters, and there was a wall of police in riot gear, and there had been a situation where a protester had thrown something off the overpass, and it happened to hit a state trooper's car below. So that caused the police officers to mobilize as in SWAT gear. And so there's basically on one end a wall of officers in SWAT gear. On the other side, about 100 feet away, are a group of protesters, and there's me in the middle, and I'm only holding the phone. And it was in that moment where I'm not just Leganzi KLEK, a journalist and media. This is where it's really hitting home that I'm a Black man in America, but I'm still having to cover what I'm streaming, and my voice is starting to crack, and everyone's like texting and encourage me, stay strong, brother. So yeah, you're right. Something like that can definitely cause you to absorb that trauma. Anyone else want to weigh in?
I'd like to add something. I agree with everything that's been said, especially as it relates to the boundaries that we set with social media. Sometimes as it relates to social media, we have to kind of reflect on what we can do to control what we're being fed on our timelines and things like that. Some of it is beyond our control, of course, but when we can kind of recognize the certain pages that we're following or things like that that are no longer serving us and that kind of create that anxiety, create those triggering moments, we can simply hit the unfollow button, and we don't have to be seeing those things on our timelines. Just doing kind of like a detox, like Joy said, of your timeline, going through those pages that are just unhealthy, counterproductive to your goals, counterproductive to the space that you want to create for yourself mentally, unfollowing those pages and kind of taking control of your own algorithm, because the more you interact with certain posts, the more you're going to see them. And so that's what we can kind of do as it relates to social media to kind of protect our peace and our space of well-being.
And that's definitely an excellent point. I'm definitely loving this discussion. And again, thank you to each one of you for participating. And for those of you watching online, once again, go ahead and drop your questions or your comments in the chat, because we definitely want to hear from you, and we will get to those in just a moment. I'm going to go ahead and get into our next topic. And this topic, I definitely would like to get some feedback on. And this topic was the main reason why I wanted Bishop Lloyd to be on the call. So there's always been the stigma of that mental illness and depression, that's just the devil, ain't nothing wrong with you, you just pray that away. But Bishop, you're in a unique position of owning a mental health business and pastoring a church. So how do you approach that? If you have a parishioner in your church, and I don't want you to give an example because obviously for privacy, but if someone in your church says, hey, I'm depressed, how can we balance faith, spirituality, and also deal with mental health?
That's a good question. One of the things I am grateful for is that I went into mental health before I started pastoring. It gave me a better understanding of what was going on. And earlier, we've been conditioned to say, well, if I just pray about it, if I just fast, if I just, do these things, then all this stuff will go away. But the Bible even tells us in Proverbs chapter 11, verse 14, it says, where no counsel is, the people fall. But in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. So as the scriptures actually encourage us to talk about what we're going through. And if somebody came up to me and said, well, I'm dealing with depression, the first thing I said, come talk to me. Let's sit down and let us see what's going on. One of the things that, especially in the old church, it's not, I think it's getting better, but if you brought up those sort of things, you were actually, in a sense, condemned. Something must be wrong with you. Your faith must not be strong enough. You must not be really saved. And what it will cause us to do is isolate ourselves or not share what's actually going on for fear of being, criticized. And so now more so than ever, we're starting to realize this is what we're dealing with, and we're able to talk about it openly.
And absolutely. And I just want to add to that. My personal therapist, she's actually in another state, but she actually is also a minister. And actually at the church she is a part of, they actually have installed an entire mental health ministry. So I'm definitely happy to see the increase of that. And just because of the help that she gave me, it actually helped me to grow my faith. It helped me to look at things a lot different, just because, as Bishop Lloyd said, it wasn't, oh, you feeling down, your faith isn't strong enough. So I definitely appreciate what you all that you do in that realm, Bishop Lloyd. All right, anyone else want to chime in on that on our panel?
I'd like to add to that. I'm definitely glad that we're on this topic. I feel like a lot of us as Christians, we definitely experience that pull of mental illness, and then also balancing our faith. I know for me personally, like I've certainly been through my own experience with mental illness and seeking therapy, being on the medications, doing all of the things. And I had to kind of come to a point where I was able to realize that it's God who provided all of these resources for me to use. And if they're here, and why not take advantage of them? I just had to be okay with the fact that I can talk to Jesus and my therapist. I can talk to Jesus and take an antidepressant. Sometimes the chemicals in our brains just don't balance out the way they should, and that's not our fault. And so just to take advantage of those resources that we've been blessed with and that he put on this earth for us to take advantage of is really how I had to just kind of get it into my head to be okay with it, to thank him for blessing me with the opportunities to have these resources available, because they've helped so much, and so has he. And so it's just, I kind of had to bring those together that way for me to make it all helpful.
Well, absolutely. And I'm a firm believer that just like God created each of us, he created therapists, he created treatments, he created the medicines, he's given us the tools. We just have to be willing to use those tools.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
kind of feeding back on what Ms. Jackson and Mr. Lloyd was saying, that question came up a lot too. Well, we go to church and we're going to pray about it. And so I would always say, the story I would say is, hey, when you get sick, you pray about it and go to the doctor, right? And this is the same thing with mental health. When something is not going right, with you, you should, hey, still pray about it and seek help. And me growing up in Church of God of Christ, my father was a pastor. Back in the day when I was a little younger, I did see people, not talk about therapy or want help. But now I know for a fact that it is changing because of people like Bishop Lloyd is getting that out there, that, it's okay. Just because you're a Christian doesn't mean that you shouldn't go see a therapist, because that's what they're there for, to help. And we can look at numbers on how therapy has helped people back in the past, and now how they're helping people. So I think just getting the word out there about they need to go see a therapist, and it's okay.
All right. Anyone else? It's like, I don't know. Joy, are you trying to unmute? Oh, okay. All right. We good on this one? All right, we're going to go on to our next subject discussion. Again, feel free, if you're watching online, to drop your questions, and we got a couple in already, and we're going to get to them. All right, the next topic is, and this is for my students on here, the mental health challenges of students. How are you all coping as students on the campus of Arkansas State University? Because some of this we've hit on earlier with how things have changed with social media, but I'm going to even add the unique challenge of being African Americans and being a minority on the campus in light of some of the racially involved things that go on in the country. So how do you all as students at Arkansas State navigate the mental health challenges that comes with being in college?
So personally, come my freshman year, I was excited to go to college, getting away from the house, starting a new life. And it wasn't until my second semester is when, looking back on it now, things changed for me. I lost a friend. My classes were tougher than what I expected because I was a straight A student back home. In college, it was different. Studying for like Gen Chem and calculus was very challenging, to say the least. And I went into I started having anxiety attacks, not knowing at the time that's what it was. I thought I was just like stressing myself out. And one thing I tell people now, like, you have to be willing to say no to others, because at that time I was the friend that everybody called, like, can I come over? I have a chair that people come in, like, will cry in, will talk things out. But on top of that, wasn't really like checking in with me to see like how I was doing. So I was taking in what they were feeling, and then it was like I was stuck with it. So my freshman year, that's, I would say, when my anxiety, or I experienced anxiety attacks for the first time. My sophomore year in college, things were better. I had just got back home from the summer, so I was ready to start things new. And that's when like my eating habits changed. I wasn't eating properly because, the CAF, whenever it was open, that's what I was eating because of the CAF budget. So personally, I gained more weight than I would have liked during that time. But it took me a moment just to realize, like, hey, things aren't the same. Like, mentally, you're okay, but physically, you're not taking care of yourself. So that's when I started to get back in the Word, just reading my Bible. At least the goal was 5 minutes a day. If it was just like listen to one song. I started to work out more. I started putting myself first, in the sense of, have you checked in with Joy? Is Joy okay? Has Joy got everything off her task list today? And with that, it helped me to be vulnerable with other students, like the freshmen coming up saying like, hey, like, this class is hard, so don't be afraid to reach out now before it's too late. Because me, I was putting my pride in front of myself and not seeking help till I was crying, just in the middle of the floor out of nowhere. So as a college student now, and with social media, the thing, I guess you said one of the trends is TikTok, or just like, can you do this dance? Or everybody wants to be a fitness influencer, and everybody wants to do the new workouts in the gym. Not all workouts are made for you. So if you can't do it, doesn't mean that you're not fit, doesn't mean you're not pretty or good enough. It's just that one particular exercise isn't for you. And the past 4 years, I've met people who have, I would definitely say, encouraged me to like be more open with what I went through in college. Because some things, like we said before, we kept to ourselves because we were like, well, maybe they're not going through it, or they wouldn't understand. But in college, 9 times out of 10, the person beside you has gone through it, or is going through it. Or in one of my cases, I was mentoring this one girl. She was at the beginning stage of where I was at my freshman year. And the other girl, she was now recovering from something she was going through. And like, as a complete circle, we were able to help each other out. Like, just because you go through this is the next step, but don't be afraid to reach out to somebody. And I guess like the biggest thing I took away from everything was knowing who I could talk to, because not everybody is your friend. You have associates, but not everybody is your friend. And not knowing that my freshman and sophomore year, and really like listen to what my mom was saying, like growing up, like, friends come and go, but family will never leave you. And I'll take you to another step. Well, family is not always blood too sometimes. Like me, I'm grateful for my family. They're my support, my rock, but for other people, that's not the case. And so know who you can personally talk to in times of trouble really can help a person out when it goes through like dealing with depression and anxiety in college, or just even like, you might not say you're trying to fit in, before you know it, you're somewhere where you've never been before and you're uncomfortable. So just knowing who your support system is, and truly knowing who you are as a person, and putting yourself first, not in a selfish aspect, but just for your overall well-being, really will help a student in college.
Raven, you want to add anything to that?
Yes, I'll definitely add. My experience with mental illness onset at a very early age. I was 12 years old when I started to experience manic episodes, very depressive episodes, and then later finding out that I had bipolar depression along with anxiety and a lot of other mental illnesses. And so I was blessed to have a family and support system that got me the help that I needed. And so I have had a therapist since the age of 12. And so the transition to college for me was really mainly maintaining my mental health routine, maintaining the things that have kept me stable and kept me balanced. Not thinking that just because I'm going to college, I need to stop seeing my therapist. I need to stop taking my medication. I had to make sure that I was disciplined enough to keep those things going. And so as soon as I got to A-State, I enrolled into therapy and started maintaining my routine and just making sure that I was always aware of my triggers. And so that when I notice myself slipping, I can reach out to the people that I need. I can do the things that I need to do to maintain that balance. And another thing that I found myself going through during college, being a minority student at a PWI, is getting kind of really intensely caught up in the student leadership roles. And while that is great, it's amazing. It has served me very well and allowed me to grow in so many ways. I found myself equating my value and success to being overly booked and busy, overly appearing at every single event that the school had, just making sure that I was the face of everything in every organization, on every e-board. And for a while, that did fulfill me. That did make me feel good. And you do want to represent and you want to get out there. You want to be involved, but you can't wear yourself crazy either. And you can't pour from an empty cup. And that's what I was starting to do. I was so busy that I did not make time for self-care. I was not resting. And all of those things really started to add up to where I had to unlearn that. I had to unlearn that resting was unproductive. I had to really change that in my head and realize that I can do all of these things, but I need to make sure that I'm taken care of as well. If I have to say no to something, that is okay. And I don't have to give an explanation. I simply don't have the capacity, and that's it. I really had to learn that because at first I was really just trying to do all of the things, be every woman, and I'm not every woman, and that's okay. And so I just had to really evaluate what was serving me, what was not serving me, and really put me and my needs back at the front. And then everything else started to become more balanced. I was able to show up the way I wanted to show up for my organizations. I was able to give 100% or a high percent to everything that I was involved in because I started to take care of myself again. So I also try to tell everybody that I can that I do seek mental health therapy services at A-State so they don't feel alone. I offered to go and help people sign up, just kind of spreading the awareness. And like Joyce said, start talking to our younger mentees that are under us and letting them know, hey, I went through this. This is what I did. You're going to be fine. Your feelings are valid. This is normal. But that's just a short spiel of my collegiate experience and how I've kind of maintained my mental health through it all.
And we definitely appreciate both of you sharing your stories. Like you, I first started dealing with depression at 13, and I also utilized the counseling services when I was at A-State, and also disability services as well. So if you are a student at Arkansas State University, definitely take advantage of those services. Those are free. And with that, I'm going to actually transition to Carnisha, since she is involved with those services on campus, to kind of get her feelings.
Yeah, so a lot of what I witnessed students coming in for it, especially as Joy and Raven highlighted, was the transitional period from, being, I guess, having parents or those that were able to, I guess, help them out a lot, to going from this place of just having that immediate support to coming to college and having a difficult time adjusting to being away from that particular immediate support and the uncertainty and the unknown of how to navigate the stresses of college. I think that, I know for me, when I came to college, I was just like, I'm away from my parents, I'm gonna ball out, like life is just gonna be great. But the reality of college really hit me pretty quick. So it's just the expectations as well. A lot of students expect for themselves to know how to navigate the stresses of college, or and sometimes even underestimate what that looks like. And so for me, I really make a point to encourage my students to really create a norm that is comfortable for them. Of course, evaluating expectations and expectations that centers around them, right? Because when we are hanging out, we find our group, we want to be like them. And, that's a good thing. We always want to be like our friends, but we also want to make sure that we maintain an identity of our own, throughout college. And so just being able to really adapt to the environment, create those realistic expectations, really figure out your place and where you belong on campus. Um, I think Raven did a really good job just illustrating like there's something out there for everyone. You just have to really make a point to reach out and get connected, as Joy said, like just really find your people. And I think that that really helps with overcoming the challenges. But um, I think that something else that's really helpful is when students are coming for like the tours and things like that. I think it's really important to ensure that they really engage and understand like where everything is located so that they at least have this map or an outline of where everything is located so that they know like the first week of classes, because we all know that that's a hectic, the first month of school is a hectic time for everybody. And so just being able to really just familiarize themselves with those resources and getting connected, I think that that really helps overcome those challenges and things.
We definitely appreciate all the work that you do. Did anyone else that haven't spoken on to weigh in on this topic? I'll make sure that I give everyone the opportunity. CJ, I said you had unmuted yourself.
Oh,
I
I didn't realize that. I'm sorry about that. Man, it's been over 20 years how close to me being a student. So
well, we'll go ahead and go into our next topic. I've got two more on my list, and then we'll go to the ones from the comments. And definitely keep those questions coming. We will get to them. So I wanted to talk next about the importance of having a positive outlet to cope with depression. I remember one of my previous therapists told me that you have to have an outlet to let your feelings out, as she compared it to like blowing up a balloon. Like if you keep blowing into it and you don't ever kind of let some of it out, that balloon is going to eventually pop. And when it pops in your face, it's not going to feel good. But a lot of times when someone's depressed, their go-to is, oh, I'm fine, or I don't want to talk about it. But yet that pressure is still building up in them. And I remember my therapist say, it can be anything as long as it's positive. Writing, singing, exercise. But I kind of want to get everyone's thoughts on just the importance of having positive ways to let those feelings out, because sometimes the person may not necessarily want to pick up the phone and call a therapist, but they still need an outlet. And the floor is open.
I'll go. So I think that, with depression, it impacts us in various ways and it looks different for all of us. And so it's really important to identify the indicators of when the onset of the depressive symptoms are occurring so that there is a preventative plan in place, whether that is engaging in coping mechanisms that I would hope that you and your therapist have created together to fall back on, or identifying healthy people. And I emphasize the importance of healthy people because there are some times where we may have people in our lives. I think Joy said it best, that may not belong in our lives. And they may actually worsen our depression instead of making it better. And so it's really important to make sure that we assess who we are contacting as our people, as our support group, really being able to just again recognize the symptoms, identifying those healthy positive outlets, and knowing that like it's okay, like it is normal to, a lot of people when they're experiencing depression, like the first thing that goes is their hygiene. And so something that if I'm meeting with someone and that's something that they present, what I do is I challenge them to set a 10-minute timer to do something. And so setting small goals, and that, goes with the just developing coping mechanisms, and also coping mechanisms that are realistic, right? So with depression, there's already that lack of motivation there. And so it, of course, isn't the smartest thing to do to say, well, if you're depressed, then I want you to go outside and run a mile or something like that. Like, that's unrealistic. And so really just being able to, again, identify though that healthy outlet of people who outside of your therapist, if you aren't in a place where you really want to talk to your therapist, because that happens. But also really developing a depression management toolkit that you can rely on in those moments where you need it the most. Because, a big part of counseling is developing, those interventions, developing those coping skills to where when you're not feeling your best, that is when you activate those things. And so ensuring that you have that preventative plan, and also you have one specific or two specific individuals that you rely on them to hold you accountable. And you also don't get mad at them when they do hold you accountable and things like that, because sometimes we can be stubborn. But just knowing that it is important. There are things that, when we're depressed, we feel out of control, but there are things within our control that we can do. And so.
Anyone else want to chime in on that?
I could say one of my outlets when I was, like, I would say deeply depressed before I started like taking care of myself, in the sense of just wake up, Joy, this is what's going on. What is now working out. Raven can tell you, or any of my line sisters, I'm always like, hey, it's 6, I'll be at the gym if you want to show up. So that's my me time. That's the time where when I'm on the treadmill, I'm not listening to music, I'm listening to a sermon for 30 minutes, or just like walking around outside. I'm not listening to music, I'm just listening to like the birds or whatever else is going on outside. That person has helped me out a lot, just knowing that I'm helping myself, as well as just mentally and physically checking in. And then, like we've been saying, having 2 people or 2 or 3 people to talk to, like, hey, this week's been rough, or I have this, and this coming up. Can you check in? Personally, I might forget to eat every now and then. I might have like a protein shake, and then it's like 8 o'clock, I haven't had a meal. So I have a lot of sisters that would check in and be like, Joy, I know you're studying, but have you eaten? And it's definitely being a STEM major is not easy. So you're always told, good luck, have fun, but you're never told like, you got this, like keep pushing through. And my aunties and my mom and my dad and my sisters and my advisors have definitely been that ear, especially this year, my senior year, and saying like, you're on your last straw. Like, you got this, keep going forward. Med school is next, don't stress about it. Like you've been saying before, if God calls you to it, he'll bring you through it. So that's my ultimate goal, my motto when I get stressed out about classes. So definitely working out and just having those people you can really depend on is highly important, personally, to me.
I want to hear from Bishop Lloyd next.
I agree with everything that everyone has said. One of the things that I did want to add is small goals, or small things. A lot of times when we think of coping, I'm going to take a vacation, or I'm going to get away, I'm going to do this. But this small things is just take a break. I think that I know that self-care is every day. You got to know when to cut off. Even if the to-do list isn't done, set a time each day to just cut off. Another thing is when you go in your bedroom to go to sleep, leave your phone somewhere else. Don't take those things in the room, because if it dings or if it lights up, then you want to look at it. Learn how to also cut things off, people off, cut social media off. If we learn those things, then I think that we can cope with depression, cope with anxiety. You have to know yourself and know what works for you. A lot of times we hear from other people that are dealing with it, and we try those things, and it's good to try those things, but know what works. While everyone was talking, I also thought about prioritizing. When we prioritize, know what's really important. Know what you have to handle for that day. When you prioritize, you won't feel so overwhelmed. A lot of times when we're depressed, we're depressed because we can't get things done. We feel like that we have so much coming at us. But if we prioritize and go down the list, I think that's a very good coping skill.
Bishop, we appreciate that. CJ, you have anything to add to the discussion?
Yeah, I was going to say, so from Thanksgiving to Christmas is an extremely depressing time for me because I lost my father December 9th, and then a friend from Jonesboro came down and she had an accident going from Kentucky back to Jonesboro, had an accident and she got killed in a car accident the same day of my dad's funeral. So that since 2005 has been a hard time for me. And, the sun is not out as much and things of that nature. So and I know that's going to happen to me during that time. So like they were alluding to, get around healthy people. That is so key when you're depressed. If you don't want to call a therapist, get around healthy family members that, that knows, what's going on with you. I think that's key because you need to get around somebody. And when you're depressed, you really don't want to be around people. You kind of want to stay to yourself or whatnot. But I have family members that know this about me. If you don't have a therapist, people that love you, that you can tell these things to, you need to be around them or find a way to have healthy communication with loved ones.
Absolutely. Definitely appreciate each one of you weighing on this topic. My last topic before we get into the questions, I kind of wanted to touch on suicide. Of course, recently the lady that was the beauty pageant winner had committed suicide, and it's something that I've personally dealing with those thoughts, and and I think anyone that has dealt with depression has probably dealt with them at some point. But sometimes a person who is suicidal, they may be on the brink, they may be thinking about it, but they haven't actually made any concrete plans, and they kind of want to reach out. They may want to talk to someone, but they're afraid if I call for help, they're going to send an officer to come. They're going to put me in a holding cell, or they're going to force me into a mental facility. And I don't want that. I just need someone just to talk me off this edge. So how can, and I'd like to start this off with the mental health professionals, and after anyone else can join in, how can we help people like that who may be feeling like that, who may not need a heavy-handed approach, but still need some help?
We have to understand that when we use the word mental illness or mental health, just like CJ said earlier, you would go to the doctor if you had a physical ailment. And so as a mental ailment, sometimes inpatient is good, it's necessary. And to let them understand that prepared to go into the hospital, you can go to the doctor, outpatient, and he can do only so much. Sometimes you need to be in the hospital where those resources are readily available to get you the things that you need. I do find that a lot, people not wanting to go inpatient because of the stigma that surrounds it. That's the crazy house or this and that, and first one thing another. But I think if we explain it in those terms, then I think it'll be easier for them to go.
Okay.
I agree with Bishop Boyd. Like, it's a place of resources. And I know for me working at A-State, if the UPD is our first line of contact with us when a student does express having suicidal thoughts and things like that, and then we come out. But in actuality, like, it is a working alliance because the officer isn't there to be threatening, but it's also understandable if there is a lack of trust in the police officer. If you have like a negative experience or encounters, it makes sense. But know that if a police officer is, called or things like that, it's more of a safety concern, not only for you, but those that are around you. And also, your family members are not trained to intervene with the situation. And so that is why the police are called. That is why the mental health professional is called. And overall, it is, at that point, it is all about your safety. If, your safety requires going to a different step and you going inpatient, then that is what's required. That's what's necessary. No one can, in reality, no one who is not your power of attorney or anyone that can make decisions on your behalf, no one can force you to go into inpatient, because that would essentially be a violation of your civil rights. However, if the police officer and the mental health professional feels as though that, this will be the best option at this point. And just really, like Bishop Lloyd said, just really providing the educational factor of, well, I can't, the resources that they can provide, I can't at this point. So let's, go through this process together and let's walk through the steps of what's going to happen once you get there. I know that that's something that I have seen that's been really helpful, just really talking about, well, what are you afraid of? And really walking them through of like what's going to happen so that they are more prepared, because I think that the level of uncertainty generates that anxiety, which only further exacerbates the symptoms that they're already experiencing. And so just being able to alleviate some of that anxiety and being able to just reframe the perspective of what inpatient looks like. And also really going over like the purpose of everyone being there. I think that that will be really helpful in really bridging the gap between, when you're suicidal and when you need to basically, like when it's time to go to inpatient and things like that.
A lot of times people identify going inpatient with the severely mentally ill. And they say, well, I'm not crazy. And they imagine being strapped in straitjackets and all these things. And just like we said earlier, the education factor is very important. It's very important. One of the things we tell our clients, especially at intake, is I have to tell someone if you're going to harm yourself or someone else. And I think it's important for them to understand we have to do this. We have to get, if you're not wanting to go, we have to get the police involved. We don't have a choice. And when they understand that, then they won't necessarily, they may blame you, but that's okay. They understand that this is your job. This is something that's mandated.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yes, I'd like to add to that. I can personally speak to the benefits of inpatient hospitalizations and how they really helped me when I was going through the very low moments of what I was going through. Like Bishop Lloyd said, sometimes the outpatient services are just simply not enough. And a lot of times they don't have the bandwidth to meet with you every single day like you might need. Therefore, going inpatient, you are provided with those resources every single day. A lot of times there's schedules where you're able to interact with other people. You're able to learn coping skills. You're able to get stabilized on different medications that may be necessary in a much more quick manner than you would be if you were just going to your outpatient appointments when you had them. And so that's just kind of how I look at inpatient. And like you said, I think it's a lack of education and just how it's displayed in the media and on movies and things like that. And then just also the experience that I'm having now as an intern at an inpatient facility, I just see how helpful it can really be. Of course, there are different spectrums of severity, but like you said, if that's what you need at that moment, then that's what you need. And then just also me being vulnerable about those hospitalizations that I have been through to other people kind of breaks down that stigma even more, because when you look at people, you don't know what they've been through. You don't know that they might have been hospitalized 3 or 4 times. You don't know that they're on medication. And so sharing these things, and not everybody will be comfortable sharing, but if you are, then I just highly encourage you sharing that to somebody so you can kind of open up that avenue of safety. And then also another thing, when people share that type of information with you, that they are suicidal or they're having these thoughts, just the first thing, just validate their feelings, appreciate them for trusting you with such heavy information, because that takes a lot of strength and courage to share that with somebody. And then, like you all were saying, a lot of times we don't have all of the answers and we don't have the services to give them in that moment. So referring them to somebody who can help, and maybe even a hotline or a therapist, or just explaining the inpatient services and things like that, is kind of what I find to be helpful surrounding hospitalization and the measures that can be taken when you are in a suicidal place.
All right, we thank you for that. Did anyone else have anything on that topic? Or not, we'll go ahead and go to our questions and our comments. Let's see, shout out to Marcia Smith-Apai, who says, yes, Jesus is my therapist. Bethel Bird says, people need to be taught that mental illness is just like any other illness. If you have a heart condition, you see the doctor. If you have diabetes, you see a doctor. If you have vision problems, you see a doctor. Therefore, if you suffer from mental illness issues, you should see a doctor. God has given doctors wisdom to help us in this journey called life. Dr. Lily Fear says, say that the mind needs medical attention, just like the heart and hypertension, etc. Cora Martin says, yes, we have to pray without ceasing and use our faith to use the tools that our Father God has provided for our flesh. Dominique White says, thanks for sharing, Joy. Lachey Robinson says, thanks for sharing. I'm so thankful for ASU counseling services during college. Bethel Bird says, it's not okay to be okay. And I'm going to get to our first question. Ali Khan says, as mental health professionals, do you see a mental health crisis following the COVID pandemic, fear, isolation, etc.? And I'll repeat the question. As mental health professionals, do you see a mental health crisis following the COVID pandemic, fear, isolation, etc.?
Yes, there has been an increase in people seeking mental health due to COVID. You know, we as humans are, we need that camaraderie. We need that, you know, to be able to hang out with people, to people. COVID limited a lot of that. You know, we stay inside. Some of us were quarantined. I remember when I was quarantined for about 14 days because I was exposed to someone at work. And this was early on, and now they wouldn't do this, but we had to stay at home, and that really bothered me. Depression is higher, anxiety is higher. Not only are you afraid to catch the COVID, but you're afraid of family members catching it. You know, the more vulnerable. All these things cause a spike in mental health.
I agree with Bishop Lloyd. There's a lot of research is saying that college campuses are seeing more students in distress because of the pandemic. Just the idea that, so I'm gonna take us back to Psychology 101, looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It has completely shifted that and thrown us off of that. And so we are having to really, for those that, you know, unfortunately were lost their jobs and things like that threatened a lot of their survival. And so having to immediately create a norm causes a lot of distress, and also the level of uncertainty. You, especially with the new variants coming out, it's like, you don't know if you got it, if you don't know if it's allergies or if it's COVID. So it's like a lot of uncertainty, which is why it's so important that we adapt and we really focus when things are uncertain. We need to really make effort in prioritizing the things that are within our control and making sure that we are doing the preventative measures that are recommended by medical professionals and the CDC to ensure that we can't predict what's next to come, within the rest of 2022, but at least we know what we can do right here, right now. And so.
Anyone else want to chime in? All right, now we'll go back to our questions and comments on the live feed. We got another question from Shaq Renilk, and I probably mispronounced the last name. I apologize. They say, what resources are available outside of Arkansas State for individuals that are low income and may not have insurance or monetary funding for mental health services. So basically, if you're not an A-state student, you need help, but you can't afford it or don't have insurance or underinsured, because not all insurances pay for mental health. What resources are out there?
As a business owner, one of the things I do is I provide a sliding scale. We talk about finances, and I try to make it comfortable for them to be able to pay. Other agencies probably possibly do the same thing.
And yes, and there are several therapists around town, and like Bishop Lloyd, which, by the way, the name of his service is Secure Foundation Counseling, and I definitely recommend him. And of course, we have several others as well, but many of them will have sliding scale. Just do a simple Google search, therapist in Jonesboro, call them, just ask them and explain your situation. Say, hey, I don't have insurance, or my income is low. Do you offer sliding scales, payment plans? And 9 times out of 10, I think you'll find that these therapists will want to help them. And yes, they got to make a living, but they truly do want to help people. And so I wouldn't let that be a barrier for stopping you. Reach out, talk with them, and I'm sure something can get worked out that will get you the help that you need. Because I think the worst thing that a therapist would want is for someone to not get help and then something happen because they let money get in the way. All right, getting back to our comments. LaWanda Coleman says, thank you for this panel. Trala Coleman says, I definitely have mental depressed as a home healthcare worker. Dominique White says, Carnisha, great point about identifying healthy people that are your support. And healthy doesn't mean those people have it all together, but they show up for you, listen, and give honest, constructive feedback. Just like us, our support people don't have to be perfect. They just have to be present. Travis Moore says, hey, everyone. Jocelyn Williams says, thank you, Joy and Raven, for y'all's transparency. Love you both. Thank you all for sharing. Phyllis Talbert says, thank you all for sharing. Thank you, Raven and Joy. Thank all of you. Travis Moore says, amen. This discussion is well needed. And I definitely want to thank each and every one of you for being on this panel and for answering the call. Thank you to each and every one of you that are tuning in. So I'm going to give final thoughts. I won't call CJ first this time. I'll actually start with Joy. So just kind of give your final thoughts, anything that you may want to say to those that are listening and watching out there.
Once again, thank you for this opportunity. If you're a student, I'm coming from a student perspective, please reach out to someone that you know has your best interest in mind. If you personally know me, I can help you find someone. Like we've all stated before, like just having a support system, whether it be family or just even your roommate or a person you just met in the hallway and you didn't know there was a connection, it's really good to have on campus. Let's not get caught up in the hype. Social media definitely will play an influence in your college experience. So like we've been saying, weave out the good and the bad. Take out the posts that make you feel down about yourself and put in more posts that are like spiritual quotes or just affirmations. So it all just put yourself first, know who you are, or get to know who you are before you try to let someone else in.
Thank you so much, Joy. Carnisha?
Yeah, same thing with Joy. I'm very glad that this conversation happened tonight. I'm very thankful that I was a part of it. Got to plug in my job. So if you're a state student, we have the counseling center available. Even if you don't want to come to the counseling center, but you want to see counseling, I'm always open to helping in any way that I can. Even if there aren't any, there is no mental health related things going on, please feel free to reach out. Like I want to be a support system, any way that I can. On campus, know that I am an ally, and I'm just want to make sure that you have a successful college experience and you get the help that you need. And like Joy said, making sure that you don't fall into the hype. Mental health, it's real. Self-care is helpful. And so, yeah, thank you.
Bishop Lloyd?
Thank you for having me on the panel. I really enjoyed the discussion. I thank y'all for being transparent and sharing your knowledge and understanding about the field. It's very important that, especially in the Black culture, that we continue to do these things because we're taught, Black people, to keep it to ourselves. What goes on in this house stays in this house. We were mostly, if you have a problem, then you talk to somebody, you talk to an older family member, or you talk to somebody that a close friend of the family. But a lot of times you need to talk to somebody that don't know mama, don't know daddy, and there's no fear of things getting back that you really need to care. So sometimes it's good to talk to someone that don't know you personally, so you can, just go ahead and feel comfortable telling them anything you need to tell them. I want to put in a plug with Secure Foundation Counseling. Come look us up and let us be able to. We want to be able to help. We can get both sides, from the Christian and also the mental health, knowing that our mental health and our physical health and our spiritual health very important for success in life.
Absolutely. And again, if you need the contact information for Secure Foundation Counseling, you can Google it, or you can call us here at KLEK if you would prefer, because some people do are particular about theirs. Some may want to see someone that looks like them, same race, same gender. Well, KLEK, we have connections to several therapists in town, including Bishop Lloyd. So if you need help and you're watching out there, just reach out to us and we'll be happy to give you these therapist contact information, and you can contact them. And we just want to make sure that you get the help that you need. CJ.
Yes, man, I'm so glad that this happened. This was amazing to be around professionals, especially in the mental health field. But I think, as Bishop Lloyd was alluding to, as African Americans, we really need to take advantage of talking with therapists. And hey, a lot of times it is, it's good to talk to people in the same culture that you were raised up in. That's a big one. And I just want people out there to, if you know of someone that's going through something, please motivate them to reach out to a therapist and talk to someone. You can inbox me. I'll find somebody for you. I'm still connected with Life Strategies of Arkansas in West Memphis, Arkansas. So the thing about it is I want to make sure people mental health is good. And, don't be afraid to reach out to somebody. That's another thing. You're worried about somebody finding out your business. Under HIPAA laws, therapists do not tell your business. So whatever you tell somebody, I don't care how bad it is, right? The therapist, that's the good thing about talking to a professional. By law, they have bylaws that they can't tell anything that you're going through or tell anybody about it. So I will leave with that.
Well, thank you so much, Raven.
I'm also very glad to be a part of this conversation. It's been very enjoyable, very well needed. And just to anybody who's struggling, your feelings are valid and there is light at the end of the tunnel. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Small progress is still progress, and just take care of yourselves as best as you can. Get those 8 hours of sleep if you can, drink the water, just do all the things to take care of yourself and romanticize the small things in life, especially during the pandemic, and just making the best out of each day. And once again, I'm just grateful to be a part of the conversation and gain insight from everyone else that's been on and sharing. And it's just been great. So thank you.
Oh, you have been great. And looks like for my ladies, it looks like we got some proud mamas in the comments. Bethel Bird says, thanks for sharing. Proud mom. Cora Martin says, amen. Keisha Smith Jackson says, amazing form, much needed conversation. Proud mama over here. Hey, it's nothing like having your mom checking in and showing you love and being proud. Also left out a comment from earlier from James Russell Williams III, who says, James Richard Russell III. I'm just botching names left to right. Thank you all so much for sharing and spreading awareness on this topic. And again, thank you to each one of our panelists. And thank you to everyone out there that tuned in. Of course, kind of just give a quick plug for some of the other things KLEK has going this month for Black History Month. This Saturday, if the ice is cleared up enough, we'll have to just see on that. It's going to be our highway cleanup on North Church Street. We'll meet up at 9 a.m. at New Life Empowerment Ministries, 2109 North Church Street. So again, if the ice isn't too bad and you need some community service, please come out. We'll have some hot chocolate and some cocoa to help keep you warm. And then February 10th, we are partnering with the Fisher Street Community an Action Group for a tour of the Jonesboro Black History Museum. Yes, there is a Black History Museum in Jonesboro, and if you have not checked it out, you need to check it out. But KLEK, we're going to be there. We're going to live stream it, but you need to see it in person because Jonesboro has a lot of rich Black history. And of course, KLEK does have an exhibit there. It's the first Black radio station. That's worth checking out in itself. And then on February 15th, I believe, is the Dean Speaks Again, an evening with our very own Dr. Sharice Jones Branch. And, you know, when Dr. Branch speaks, knowledge is going to be dropped. So you definitely got to check her out. That will also be on via Zoom. You can check that out on our Facebook Live. And we're going to cap off the month on the 25th with our open night poetry, spoken word, that is going to be in downtown Jonesboro at the Parsonage at 7 o'clock p.m. We're also going to have an auction of authentic African gear. And I failed to mention the grand opening of our brand new KLEK studio. That's going to be next Friday at from 4 to 6 p.m. The Jonesboro Regional Chamber of Commerce will do the ribbon cutting at 3:30. And if for no other reason, I got to shout out my guy Adrian Everett, Big A&K Barbecue. They're going to have the smoked rotel dip and the smoked spaghetti and the smoked wings. So for nothing else, you got to come get that. Also, there's lots of Black history events going on at A-State. There's really too many to mention, but if you Google Arkansas State University Black History 2022, then there is the full list of events there. So support all of the Black history events going on all throughout the city of Jonesboro. Once again, thank you to each and every one of you that participate in the panel and that tune in. You guys be safe in all of this weather out here, and you all have a great and blessed day. This is KLEK 102.5 FM. Have a good night, everyone.